Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm back. It's been a couple weeks. I've been stuck at home isolating. I got a touch of the plague and I think I'm over that now. Doing pretty good with the exception of having no taste and smell. I'm pretty much back to normal. So that means back to working on the 612. I got some updates for you. I've heard news that my buddy Kyle is working on these final pinion drive parts for me, and he's hoping to wrap them up in the next week or two here and get them shipped off to me. So that'll be good news. We get them back, we'll be able to install that. I've been working on rounding up a few more things. I got the new radiator hose in. I ended up going with the red because I think that'll look pretty sharp against the green. Little contrast and a little bit something different. It's actually more of an orangey than it is red, but that's the vintage color I guess they were. So I think that's pretty cool. So I got a chunk of that. Really exciting news. I got my Magneto bat back from Matt Scott here the other day. And boy, does it look nice. Good job, Matt. I am so happy. I mean, so he completely rebuilt it for me. Polished the brass, clear coated it, sandblasted or bead blasted, whatever rest of it, and painted it. It is nice. All the mechanisms work. This is your impulse mechanism here. Goes back and forth to catch on the dog there. This is your advance and retard. Mechanism here. So this bracket here mounts underneath the Magneto, and then there's another arm that I'm missing that bolts on to this and ratchets on these little teeth here. So I'll have to fabricate that arm. Talked with Norm last night and we'll see if he can make me up a little blueprint or something because he has an original one, so I can kind of reverse engineer it based on that. This is the coupling that drives your Magneto. It goes to your governor. Have to clean that up yet. So basically the mag is ready to go. We can do our mag wires and stuff then, spark plug wires, when we get to that point. This is where your kill wire hooks up to ground out the mag to kill the tractor. So 612's never had an actual on-off grounding switch by the operator, to my knowledge at least. You'd have to physically get off the tractor and ground out your impulse here, or your advanced retard here. But for safety reasons, most everybody puts an actual switch somewhere back by the actual operator. So if something goes wrong, you need to kill the tractor, you have a switch here at some point. I haven't figured out exactly where I want to put mine yet. A lot of guys will put them on that throttle quadrant casting here, so that's most likely what I'll end up doing. But I'll try to come up with some type of a switch that kind of looks vintage, doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. So if anybody has any really good ideas on what kind of switch I could use for there or how I should do it, I'm all ears. Hit me up, leave a comment below, or let me know. We also got back some new clutch parts. Matt Scott made them up for me as well. So this is the original part that he brazed up and remachined because it was all worn down, if you remember. That looks really nice. This was the original part that it threaded onto, and there was enough things wrong with it that we decided just to fabricate a new one. It was easier than trying to fix the original. So the original one is bronze or brass or whatever it is. We decided to make it out of some steel and just put a bronze insert in it, just to make life a little easier and a little less expensive. And what I really like about Matt is that he used what he had available, and what he had available was a chunk of axle from a 2035 Allis. So that's what this part is actually turned out of. So it's turned out of a vintage piece of steel. I find that kind of interesting. So this threads onto here and then goes into the clutch. So now now that I have this back, I can start test fitting, dry fitting some more of the clutch here and make sure everything's going to work. We'll have to make a new lock wire because Matt discovered that that was the issue with this wear point, because the original hole is here and it wasn't in that hole. Reason being is that this lock wire was broken off. It's not deep enough to engage through that part into this part. So that's why it had moved and shifted and it was wearing funny. So I'll have to make a new one of them. And then if everything checks out right as far as fitment and whatever, he didn't do the final drill through into the new part. He wanted to make sure everything was right, so I'll do that. Because if we need to adjust, say this distance is a little bit off, I could always put a shim in here or have it machined back a little bit farther or whatever to make, if something doesn't come out quite right. But we basically reverse engineered it so it should come out right. So the reason for those bushings is that it doesn't really ride on, but it kind of does ride on your input shaft for your transmission here. It's kind of floating on there, so that's why it's got to be able to have that's a really nice fit there too, Matt. Good job. We measured this to make it come out right because the old one was very worn on the inside as well. So that should be good. I talked to Norm, looking at the spline here reminded me, I talked to Norm last night, and he's working on making the clutch driven disc yet. He's got the part off to the foundry to get a new one cast, and I'll have to get him some measurements for my spline because we're going to make the new spline fit the worn old spline to take up the slop there. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff going on. Check back with you guys later. Okay, a couple more little small wins. Put some jam nuts on the back of these clevis yokes. They never had it when I took it apart, but I think they probably should, so you can lock it tight. Seems like that it would be correct. I installed these little push button oilers for these pins on both sides. So that's done. Here's a little blueprint of this toolbox and clutch access door knob for anybody that might need to make one. I know Roger wanted me to make a little blueprint for him. He has to make a couple for his tractor. So it's flat on the top, of course flat on the bottom. It's a 1/4-inch hole through it, and there's the rest of the dimensions there. This top radius actually goes a little bit beyond the top because it's flat. Oh, bummer. We've discovered an issue. Small setback here, but nothing we can't deal with. So when the mag came with this tractor, the arm had been cut off on that mag. So when we redid it, of course, I wasn't really thinking about that. We just assumed that it was a farmer fix or something, you know, had been hacked up. So Matt put on a good double arm, complete one. And that's even what the parts breakdown shows and everything. So we just assumed that was the correct thing to put back on there to make it correct and original. Well, turns out that was hacked off for a reason. It only needs this outer arm, like we talked earlier, to engage on the lever here. And here it is all mocked up how it actually would go, and then the bolts bolt up through the bottom, through everything to hold it all together. So, with this full arm, there's interference issues. That arm hits the casting here before it can go back far enough for the holes to line up to bolt it together. So there was a reason that that was cut off. So Matt's gonna fix up that other arm for me and send it to me. I guess it's not a big deal to swap this out. He was saying that I should be able to do that here. You don't have to take the whole Magneto apart or everything or anything to do that. So we'll get it straightened out, but it's just kind of a bummer. I wish we would have thought about that before he went through all the effort of fixing this all up with this arm. But oh well, lessons learned, I guess. So future reference for other 612 owners out there. Can't have that arm. Won't work. All right, moving on. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here now is turn this around and back it up over here to reposition things in the shop. So when I get to the point of dry fitting the clutch onto the engine and then dry fitting the engine into the tractor, I can utilize the gantry crane to put it on the front here. Where the tractor was positioned over here, I couldn't get it over there to use it. So we'll kind of see if I can get this thing turned around in here. It actually rolls pretty easy. It's kind of surprising with no lugs or nothing on it. It rolls pretty good. And I'm trying to keep it on the cardboard to keep from messing up the wheels any more than necessary. Try to keep it nice, at least until it's done, right? So we'll see if I can finish parallel parking this thing. So we're getting there. I think it's going to make it. Have to do a couple of wiggles, but we'll get her turned around. I got her all parked. Shop kind of put back in order here. So now you can see how it'd be a lot easier now to take the engine and put it into the tractor with the tractor over in this location. And you get to see the other side of the tractor now. You've been looking at the whatever left side of the tractor for months now. Now you can look at the right side. I was looking at the clutch parts here a little bit more now, kind of trying to figure out all this. Looks like this should work. So I got the pulley part that the spring rides up against onto the new clutch part Matt made. That's a nice fit now. It's not sloppy like it was before because the spline is nice and new. The keyway rather. Slot, whatever you want to call it. So that should be good. I'm not even sure what the next step is going to be here, to be honest with you. I'm trying to just kind of think things through here and figure out how I want to test fit all this. I'm thinking maybe the next step would be to actually put the flywheel on the back of the engine and see, because those studs stick through here, of course. And I guess kind of see how that works in relation to this in here, because then that'll limit how far that could go back. So that'll really probably sit something like this, I'm guessing. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not really even sure what my next step is here. I'll have to sit here and think about it a little bit. Flywheel is on the crankshaft. I chased all the stud threads before I put them on there, and as suspected, these are drilled with one stud out of what do you want to say, alignment slightly, so the flywheel will only go on in one orientation, which makes sense because they got those marks that we showed previously for timing the engine and whatnot. Where is it? There's one there, 1 and 4, and 2 and 3, and there's that other hash mark there. So it makes sense that it's drilled in such a way that you can only put it on one way, so the timing marks come out right. I guess I still don't know where do those timing marks line up with. It's not as if there's a pointer or something, and it's not like most tractors where you look in a little, inspection hole in the side of the housing or whatever and look for that, line up the timing mark in the inspection hole. So that's a good question I hadn't really thought about until just now. So anybody that knows, I suppose I could read through the manual. Maybe it says in the manual. I'll have to do that tonight if I think about it. I'm assuming it's probably looking in through I didn't think that through. Reach through with one hand. There we go. I'm assuming it's probably looking through this here, but what it lines up with exactly, if there's, as far as I know, there's no hash marks or nothing in here. If you just go in the center of this opening or what, I don't know. To research that. If anybody knows, let me know. But besides, come on. But besides that, that's pretty much what I've gotten done here. So I think I will maybe try the clutch parts in here now, like I said, to see how that pulley clears these studs and whatnot, because like I've mentioned before, I'm at the point now where I'm putting together puzzle pieces here that I didn't take apart. This was all completely taken apart. The front of the tractor, engine, everything was all 100% taken apart when I bought the tractor. So I don't even know how all of this goes and fits and whatnot. I'm figuring it out as I go. So that's making things a little bit more tricky. So, okay, I think I gotta quit thinking about this for a while. My brain's starting to hurt. I don't think I can fully figure this out until I have that center driven disc back. I thought I could do it by just putting some shims or whatever to replicate the thickness of that in here. But if I'm looking at this all right, I think this actually seats up against that driven disc, because the spring is pushing back on that when this is in here, pushing this way. So there's got to be something that stops this. And obviously that driven disc would be what's behind this pulley. So that must, at least to a certain extent, seat up against that. Am I thinking about that right? I'm not sure. Like I said, I've been sitting here staring at this, trying to figure it out. Thought I had it all figured out, but now I'm doubting myself. So I think I'm going to walk away for a while. It's about supper time anyway. Maybe we'll probably come back out again tomorrow and work on something. Not sure what. We'll work on something. Well, I do think I'll probably end up having these ends of these linkages built back up too, because they're rather worn, and I think that might be an issue too, because they're not worn evenly even. That one's a lot more than these two are. So that pulley might want to cock in there. So I think I'll have to look into that a little bit. Not sure if these are, I'll have to look that up again too, if these are cast steel or if they're cast iron, because that'll decide how they're, what we have for options to fix that, build them back up. And then along with that, same logic, possibly the back of the throwout here as well, because that is worn too. And at the very least we'll probably have to remachine these, but probably would be best to build them back up to the proper specs. I don't know, lots of stuff to think about here. I'm tired of thinking about it. I just want to kind of, put something together, but everything you do, you got to think about something else before you put it back together, because everything works with everything else, and if one thing is wrong, everything is wrong. So, all right, I'm signing off for tonight. See you tomorrow. Those clutch parts, that M10, the three little arms. M10, they call them bell cranks. They are malleable, and the throwout fork S138 clutch fork is cast steel, so that makes life easier as far as repairing stuff. I'm pretty sure you could weld cast steel. Malleable I'm not 100% sure on, but at least it's not cast iron. And I'm thinking you could also probably, in this situation, braze those worn ends up and remachine them down, and that would probably be fine too for this application. But just figured I'd share that little bit of info with you. So I'm pretty excited here, guys. I just solved one of life's mysteries, I'm pretty sure. So looking through the parts book here today, trying to figure something else out, and I got sidetracked. And I got to look again at S187 and S188, which are the roller pin remover, cast iron, and the special screw for 188, which is just a steel. So, why am I so excited? Well, I never really knew what that was. I mean, we knew it was a tool to remove the pinion, final pinion drives. And we figured, it was a threaded bolt with some type of a standoff that you would put on the end of the axle, and you put your bolt in and nut on the bolt most likely, and use it like a puller to pull these out so you can replace them when they get worn, right? Okay, nothing too special about that. But obviously they had a special tool just for that, but you can't really make out what it is in the parts book here. It's kind of a square looking thing, but that didn't, whatever. I didn't think much of it. Well, it finally dawned on me today. If you remember way back in some of the videos, this tractor was obviously a basket case, and it came with a bunch of jars of miscellaneous hardware and stuff. And some of the stuff I don't think even went to the tractor or whatever. Well, this was one of those things. If you remember me showing you that, actually one of the early videos, and I kind of go, oh, I kind of doubt this is for the tractor. And I've always just thrown it aside and didn't think much of it. Well, then it dawned on me, that sure looks like the picture. Square, it's got the little notch in the back there. It's cast iron, like the parts book calls for. So I dug it out here today, and sure enough, it's the right size for those final pinion parts to go in. It's the right correct depth for that to pull them out. So how this would work is in your final drives here, when these would be pushed, installed into place, you would take your special factory tool, put it on here, and that's why that little notch is there to clear that part of the axle. You put your special bolt through there, thread it into the end, which is tapped. The factory ones are tapped. So you thread your bolt in there, or threaded rod in there, and then you have another nut on that threaded rod, and you tighten up that nut, and it would pull it out of there into it would, oops, maybe this way. It would pull it out, and it would be inside of here. So maybe I'm just easily amused, but whatever. But it's like, that's pretty awesome. I got a factory tool here. So I'll have to run this through the sandblaster and see if I can find any really faint part numbers or anything on it. I have not. I gave it a quick little wire brush here, but I don't see any raised casting numbers. But whether there's maybe a faint stamped in casting number somewhere is still a possibility. So that's pretty awesome, because to my knowledge, I might be the only person that has one of these, because everybody else I've asked about this special tool, they've all given me the old, I don't know, nobody's ever seen one for an answer. So there you go. Now everybody knows this is what it looks like. Guard that with the special stuff from now on. I'll have to sandblast it up and paint it up and put it with the rest of the tractor. I suppose maybe we'll have to consider, you know, since I have an original, maybe getting a few more of these cast made up for other 612 owners. But yeah, let me know what you think. Is that what I think it is? Sure looks like it to me. It's way too much of a coincidence otherwise. And I suppose it's square, so that way, as it's coming out, it doesn't start spinning. And, you know, instead of pulling it, it doesn't start spinning. And I imagine that's why it's square shaped, because it would have been a whole lot easier to make just round. So yeah, pretty awesome. With that, I think I'll probably sign off for the week here. I've been kind of just trying to figure out a few more things as far as clearances, and figuring out clutch stuff, and figuring out repair options as far as these worn arms. Just kind of a lot of planning. I've been there's I think I probably mentioned this in the past, there's a keeper plate that, you know, your pilot bearing is pressed in there, and then there's a keeper plate that goes on to keep that bearing located in the flywheel. And that part I was missing, so I got a blueprint from David Dickmeyer, and I'm going to work on making up one of them. So I've kind of been trying to figure out that, and figure out making up one of them. So that's kind of on the to-do list. I started to measure up the spline size here and how worn things are, but I need to bring my micrometer out because I can't get in here with the calipers the way the tractor is shaped. So I'll have to measure that up in the near future to get those measurements to norm, because it sounds like we'll probably have him, as long as he's making that driven disc, to put the splines in and do all the final machining on that at the same time, since he has more machine tools available at his disposal than I do here. So, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to. I think I probably rambled on long enough for this week. I'm going to sign off, and hopefully we'll see you all next week, and we'll get something else done. I appreciate you all watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It helps me build the channel. We're doing really good. Last I checked, we're over 100 subscribers now, which to me is just amazing. And there's 100 people out there that enjoy watching what I put out there. So thank you all. I appreciate every one of you. And I'll keep trying to put out this kind of content. So you seem to be liking it. So, all right. See you all next week.